You know how people always say, you never really know your neighbors until something bad happens? I used to think that was just one of those cliché lines people say when they're trying to sound wise. But then one day, I came home from the hospital barely able to walk straight after a brutal abdominal surgery only to find out my neighbor, who also happened to be the president of the HOA, had filed a fake deed transfer while I was under anesthesia. She tried to steal my house. Yeah, that was the moment I learned that sometimes the real danger isn't a break-in or a burglar. It's the people who smile at you over the hedge every morning, then forge your signature the minute you can't defend yourself. It started with what I thought was just a routine medical issue. Some stomach pain, some bloating. Turned out I had to go under the knife for an emergency procedure. The doctors said recovery would be slow. I'd be in and out of consciousness for days, on painkillers and tubes, and all kinds of monitors. I wasn't worried about the house. I had cameras installed, mail forwarding set up, even a close friend who agreed to drop by and check the front lawn every few days. But what I didn't count on was Karen. Now, obviously that's not her real name, but we'll call her Karen because, well, she saw one. She had always been a little intense with the HOA stuff, knocking on doors about trash cans being out an hour late, posting warnings about mailbox decorations, even once threatening to fine someone for levying sidewalk chalk drawings that were too political. But I figured that was just her personality, annoying, but harmless. Man, I was wrong. I got home a week later than expected, dragging myself into an Uber with stitches still tied under my shirt. And when we pulled up to my house, my stomach dropped for reasons that had nothing to do with the incision. There was a for sale sign on my front lawn. Not leaning or half-buried, no. Fresh, new, perfectly planted, with my address printed in bold. And standing next to it, a real estate agent showing a couple around my porch like they own the place. The woman waved like she thought I was the Uber driver for the potential buyers. I stood there, bandages, meds, hospital bracelets still on, and just said, "What the hell is this?" The agent looked confused. "Sir, are you lost?" That snapped something in me. I limped up and said, "This is my house. Who gave you permission to sell it?" He stammered. The owner? Karen Peterson?" At that moment, everything spun. I felt cold. Karen, the HOA president. The woman who once left a typed note on my door about the color of my blinds had claimed ownership of my property. I told him to leave, called 911, then called my lawyer. At the precinct, things got even more surreal. Turns out, while I was in the hospital, Karen had filed a quitclaim deed at the county clerk's office. She forged my signature, claimed I'd given her the house as settlement of neighborhood disputes, whatever that means. She even managed to file it with some low-level notary who probably didn't even check ID. She told the cops that the property was unmaintained, that she had to intervene as the HOA representative to prevent community blight. She said I'd verbally surrendered the property before my medical leave. Except, none of that was true. I had the original deed, dated and notarized, in a fireproof safe. I had security camera footage of her entering my yard, peeking in windows, even taking pictures of my mail through the slot. I had text records, bank statements, and hospital logs proving I wasn't in any state of mind to transfer property, much less sign anything. The police took one look at the forged paperwork and said, "This looks like deed fraud." They launched a full investigation, and soon enough, Karen's whole story unraveled. Apparently, this wasn't her first time walking the legal line. She'd made threats against other residents before, saying they'd regret voting against her at HOA meetings, or that she knew people in the city office. She'd even tried to shut down a community garden because the sunflowers blocked her dog's YEW of traffic. But this was different. This was criminal. She was charged with first-degree deed fraud, forgery, identity theft, and filing false legal documents, The DA said, depending on the judge, she could face up to 30 years of convicted. The fallout was satisfying, I won't lie. Neighbors who'd once been scared to speak up started coming out of the woodwork. A woman down the block admitted Karen once told her she wasn't the right type of homeowner for this neighborhood. A retired vet said Karen had tried to fine him for displaying a flag on his porch. Even the local newspaper picked up the story. HOA president accused of stealing veteran's home while he recovered from surgery. She tried to spin it, of course. Claimed it was a misunderstanding, that she meant well, that she was only trying to protect the neighborhood. But when they read her texts in court, the ones where she said, "Once I get him out, I'll repaint it and list," well, the jury didn't exactly buy the good intentions. She pled not guilty, of course, but was denied bail. And what's wild is that even then, even in the face of all the evidence, there were still a few people defending her. She was strict, but fair, one guy said. She kept the weeds down. Yeah, and almost stole a house in the process. The real kicker? The HOA tried to distance themselves as fast as possible. They held an emergency vote and removed her from her post. They issued a public apology, though it was more PR than heartfelt. But the residents were done. We started organizing our own meetings, pushing for new bylaws to prevent something like this from ever happening again. We started drafting policies about transparency, checks and balances, and whistleblower protections. It wasn't just about Karen anymore. It was about community. I still live in that house. I still wake up every morning, walk past the spot where that for sale sign once stood, and shake my head. Some days, I laugh. Other days, I feel this deep pit of anger. Because honestly, it could have worked. If I hadn't come home when I did, if I'd stayed under anesthesia for one more week, she might have sold the place right out from under me. That thought still chills me. But here's what I've learned. Power doesn't come from titles or boards or laminated name tags. It comes from truth, from community, from knowing when to speak up and when to fight back, even if your body's bruised and your spirit's tired. Karen tried to take my house. Instead, she lost hers. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with an HOA gone rogue? Have you seen someone use a position of power to manipulate or steal? Drop your story in the comments. Let's talk about how we hold people like this accountable. Because if we don't, who will? And to anyone out there recovering from something, whether it's surgery or heartbreak or betrayal, just know, they might come for you when you're down, but that doesn't mean you're out. You get back up, you fight smart, and you make sure the truth gets louder than the lies. Every single time. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story on Store of Good Stories. If this story touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to hit like and share the video to spread this positive message to more people. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the meaningful stories we share every week. Your support is the biggest motivation for Store of Good Stories to keep bringing heartfelt and valuable stories to you. See you in the next video.